I bought a new house in the small town of Winthrop. The house was cheap, but the most important part was that I needed to get away from the city. A few months ago, I had a run-in with a stalker. While I had managed to get him arrested, I couldn't shake the feeling of eyes just constantly watching me. I felt like there were eyes everywhere, at home and on the street. So I decided to move out into the country to somewhere with fewer people, just for peace of mind. The house itself was big and somewhat old, but otherwise very welcoming. The agent who introduced me to the house had been required to mention that a serial killer had lived here in the past, which was why the house was so cheap. However, he, and later, my next-door neighbor Sarah, both told me to pay the thought no mind. For other owners had lived in the house since then, and all of them were very happy with it. I loved the house. Its interior furnishings were beautiful and very comfortable. The people of Winthrop were friendly, often bringing over freshly baked pastries or inviting me over for dinner. Get-togethers, they said, were the key to making sure everyone who lived in Winthrop loved it there. Yet after a week, I stopped loving it. The feeling of someone watching returned, worse than before. I tried to ignore it, but soon I started losing sleep. Giant bags grew under my eyes, and I began yawning almost as much as I breathed. Sarah was kind enough to let me stay in her house for a few nights. It was during this time that I heard the legend of Forrest Carter, the serial killer who had lived in my house. While no one knows his exact kill count, Carter, also known as the Winthrop Peacock, was a man with an extremely severe case of narcissism. Legends say that he couldn't fall asleep if he didn't feel like he was being watched. He was finally arrested for putting up a scarecrow to watch him during the night. Only it wasn't a scarecrow. Carter had murdered a 17-year-old girl just so her corpse could stare at him. The story gave me shivers, and after I went home, I felt like there were hundreds of pairs of eyes just watching me no matter how I turned. Today, however, was the first day that I acted out. I was cooking breakfast when I felt the eyes. Instinctively, out of fear, I threw my kitchen knife, which lodged itself into the wall. As I pulled it out, I found myself staring at a pair of eyes, pickling in formaldehyde. I've been watching the police peel away the drywall of my house for hours now. So far, they've found 142 pairs of eyes in little glass jars. The scariest thing is, everyone was staring at me. Cradling my 4-year-old daughter in my arms, all I could do was listen as the screaming outside the house got louder and louder, interspersed with sounds of violence and horrible wet thuds and the unmistakable echo of muscle and sinew resisting the force that was slowly tearing them apart. It started just 3 days ago. Something happened out there in the world, and before we even get news of what's going on, seemingly half of the world is gone. They poured forth across the world. From wherever it was that it started, I hear banging on the door downstairs and the screams of people being slaughtered, unable to mount a proper resistance against such a force. It doesn't take long before the pounding gives way to splintering and the sound of shattering wood. They're in the house. No more than a moment or two passes before the door to the bedroom starts shuddering. The things I piled against it are holding, for now, but I know, realistically, that they're going to manage to come through. I keep rocking my little girl, humming a lullaby in her ear to calm her as she cries. The pounding grows in force and volume, and the frame starts to crack. I put my little girl on my lap, her back to my chest, and I stroke her head with both hands, from the top of her scalp, down across her ears, just as I've done ever since she was a baby, just the way she loves it. The effect is instantaneous. Her desperate crying calms to a series of sobs and hiccups, her small body shuddering against mine in fear. I keep humming to her, soothing her hair, acting for all the world as if nothing is out of place, not a single thing amiss. Agonizingly slowly, in a reverse cadence of the sound of splintering wood, she calms down. I can feel it when she stops tensing, as I keep stroking her down the sides of her head. A final hiccup of a sob, and she falls quiet, her body relaxed. She doesn't even have time to realize what's happening as I twist her neck with a violent jerk, accompanied by a dry snap of a sound. She's dead before she can even slump down into my lap. The door is giving way, the furniture is pushed back. I may be torn limb from limb while I scream, but at least my baby angel's safe from harm. I flung myself through the door and vaulted the toppled, long-dead refrigerator that served as an ineffective barricade in front of me. My legs propelled me through the room and into the small hallway on the other side. I couldn't stop eating the expired contents of the fridge, appealing to me despite their stench after several days without food. The shrieks of pain and cries for mercy around me spurred my body onward and filled me with unexpected energy in spite of my hunger. We were at war. I came to a halt in front of a small bathroom. A noise. Something behind the shower curtain. My fear heightened and images of the enemy flooded my mind. Merciless beasts wearing human skin, devouring indiscriminately, accepting no pleas, and respecting no argument. Zombies. It had begun as we expected, with a virus. The original infected was almost a cliché. There was no humanity left in them. Just mindless rage, twisted bodies, and some primal urge to consume others. Our generation had prepared, with almost obsessive focus, for this monster. The first wave was eradicated with almost laughable ease. We were not prepared for adaptation. We were not prepared for the creature we bred by destroying the instantly recognizable zombie. A creature with more tact. Most of the first zombies were killed at close range, you understand, since longer range attacks were less likely to be fatal. We had trained ourselves, even before the outbreak, to equate infection with death when it came to zombies. A person died when their eyes clouded over and they started biting, not when you put a bullet in their head. The new strain of the virus still controlled the body, yes, but it left other faculties to the host. Maybe you could pull the trigger on a hopelessly crazed caricature of your best friend, your spouse, or your child. But what if there was still a soul behind those eyes? If even as they attacked, they sobbed and screamed in their voice? All the virus needed was a moment's hesitation. I bet you'd hesitate. I did. This is why now I could only watch as my arm wrenched back the shower curtain and my hands reached for the cowering child. Why I could only beg for forgiveness before the virus used my mouth to tear ragged, bloody hunks from his body. Why I couldn't even vomit as my hunger dissipated with the now sickeningly familiar taste of human flesh. We were at war, and I am the enemy. Here they come again, the brave ones. Another Halloween night and the kids are back, here to prove their fearlessness. The old house's floorboards creak beneath their sneakers. Only half an hour until midnight, so I have to work fast. I start with their flashlight, blowing lightly against it so that it flickers, but this inspires little more than a nervous giggle. 15 minutes until midnight. Time to take things up a notch. I hover up to the ceiling and will my body into flesh. My every nerve is on fire, but they've given me no choice. I force drops of blood to trickle out my nose, but the boys below don't notice. I knock against the ceiling, but they won't even look up. I thought this place was supposed to be haunted, says the leader. What a joke. 5 minutes until midnight. I'm running out of time. With the last of my strength, I scream, so loud that they finally turn to look up at me. I like to think I put on a good show. I sway on an invisible noose, and the blood flows freely from my nostrils now. A couple of drops hit a skinny one with a crew cut. The boys scream and run into the night, just in time. Below me, I hear the thing turn, its disappointment palpable. For now, it sleeps. But one day, I will fail. The boys will be too brave, and I won't scare them out in time. One day they will wake it. I don't want to sound mean, but the dead are pretty clueless. I've always seen them. When I was younger, everyone thought I was just talking to imaginary friends. After a couple of years, when I overheard my parents talk about calling a psychologist, I realized what I was talking to. See, ghosts don't tend to realize they're dead, and they don't look like in the movies. They look just like us. I'm pretty smart for a 13-year-old, so I started noticing certain patterns to tell them apart from the living. They could be a bit distant from living people, or you'd see them try to talk to people who wouldn't even notice them. Some of them could tell I was different, that I noticed them. Like this guy I saw after school yesterday. I'm a big boy now, see? I don't need my parents to pick me up. Home is just a short walk away. He was standing away from the other parents, didn't talk to them, just stared at me. That's how I knew he was one of the ghosts. I went over, told him I knew what he was, and asked how I could help him. I don't remember much after that. I think because of what happened this morning. Downstairs, my parents were crying. I tried talking to them, but they ignored me. They must have died last night somehow. Sometimes the new ghost wouldn't talk to me. Some police officers and reporters just arrived. They won't talk to me either, just my parents. It's weird. I've never seen so many ghosts together before. Why won't anyone talk to me? Yesterday, I was doing my regular stuff. At this point, I was on a call with my friend for 20 minutes and randomly, my bathroom light turned off. I was on the porch with the view on the inside, and the bathroom light turned off, then the bedroom light, then the living room. I moved out 3 months ago, and I'm home alone. After 5 minutes, the porch light turned off and the TV followed. 20 seconds after that, the whole street went dark. It was 12 at that point, and all street lights and lights were off. I tried turning my TV back on, but nothing happened. My phone suddenly just started playing random music, as if someone had been playing the piano on my phone. 1 hour later, I tried going to sleep in the pitch black and left my phone in the living room, still playing music. I woke up that morning from a nightmare, and everything was on, as if nothing had happened, nothing was touched, and the TV outside was still on pause from my call and on my phone on the couch. It was off and said I had been on call for 2 hours and 47 minutes. I called my friend, and he just said, "You were talking, then you stopped talking." I waited and nothing. I thought I heard you drop your phone and mumble a few times after just hanging up after a while. I still have nightmares and questions from that day. Hello, my dear. You do not know who I am, but I know you. I am one of the 3 demons that were assigned to you at birth. You see, some people in this world are destined for greatness, destined to live happy, fulfilling lives. You, I am afraid, are not one of those people, and it is our job to make sure of that. Who are we? Oh yes, of course, how rude of me. Allow me to introduce us. Shame is my younger brother, the demon on your left shoulder. Shame tells you that you're a freak, that those thoughts you have are not normal, that you will never fit in. Shame whispered into your ear when your mother found you playing with yourself as a child. Shame is the one who makes you hate yourself. Fear sits on your right shoulder. He is my older brother, as old as life itself. Fear fills every dark corner with monsters and turns every stranger on a dark street into a murderer. Fear stops you from telling your crush how you feel. He tells you it is better not to try than to let people see you fail. Fear makes you build your prison. Who am I, then? I am the worst of your demons, but you see me as a friend. You turn to me when you have nothing else because I live in your heart. I am the one who forces you to endure, the one who prolongs your torment. Sincerely, Hope. There was a hunter in the woods who, after a long day hunting, was in the middle of an immense forest. It was getting dark, and having lost his bearings, he decided to head in one direction until he was clear of the increasingly oppressive foliage. After what seemed like hours, he came across a cabin in a small clearing. Realizing how dark it had grown, he decided to see if he could stay there for the night. He approached and found the door ajar. Nobody was inside. The hunter flopped down on the single bed, deciding to explain himself to the owner in the morning. As he looked around, he was surprised to see the walls adorned by many portraits, all painted in incredible detail. Without exception, they appeared to be staring down at him, their features twisted into looks of hatred. Staring back, he grew increasingly uncomfortable. Making a concerted effort to ignore the many hateful faces, he turned to face the wall, and exhausted, he fell into a restless sleep. Face down in an unfamiliar bed, he turned, blinking in unexpected sunlight. Looking up, he discovered that the cabin had no portraits, only windows. Jake's best friend is his grandpa. They are inseparable. Jake wakes up asking for his grandpa, and he only sleeps if grandpa is sitting by his bedside. It is a common sound in our house to hear this wee 3-year-old laugh with glee at the stories grandpapa regales him with. While other kids cling to their parents, I could be gone for hours, and Jake wouldn't notice because he was with his grandpa. Jake can also be quite the clown. If he finds a stick, he picks it up, holds onto it, bends his little back, and takes even more baby steps to imitate how grandpa walks. He also crinkles up his face in an adorable frown to imitate grandpa's face. Look, Mom, I'm grandpapa. He likes to yell out each time he pulls that face. Except, there is no grandpa. Jake's grandfather, my father, lives 3,000 miles away from us. We get to see him maybe once a year, if we are lucky. The house we moved into belonged to an old couple. After her husband died, his wife, the 85-year-old widow, sold the house to us and moved to France to be with her daughter. So yeah, every time Jake calls for his grandpa, a shiver runs down my spine. I can recall what it felt like to lose both of you, to bring both my wife and unborn child to the hospital, praying for their safety. Despite the shards of glass still lodged in my arms and face, I waited outside the ICU for you. I refused to get treated, which was admittedly stupid. I knew you'd be mad about it once you got out of surgery, but it was worth it to see you the second the doctors were done. You didn't make it, though. I remember seeing you in the morgue. The lips I'd kissed so many times were gone with the rest of your jaw. The legs you'd wrapped around me were shattered. The arm that bore your wedding band had been torn out of its socket. You and the baby were gone. As bad as this is to say, I wish your eyes were gone too. Your glassy stare felt accusatory. When I finally got home, I fell asleep in an empty bed. An empty house. When I awoke and you were in the baby's room, rocking him gently, it was a boy. I guess you called it that. I felt at peace. We ate breakfast together. You fed him. I kissed you. I did the dishes. I took the lead on changing his diapers. Our life is going how we expected. It can't be you, though, right? I saw you dead. I saw him dead. I don't care to dwell on it, though. My love is still there, and it always will be. I'm really not sure if you're her or not. If I never ask, I pray you'll never tell. Drip, drip, drip. The ice was melting. My prison was thawing. Soon, I would be free. How has the world changed? I wondered, would it be easy to find food, warmth, and shelter? Would I be stranded here on the ice or in the water? Drip, drip, drip. I had been frozen for so long. So very long. My siblings beside me yearned for freedom just as I did. When the ice gave way, we would burst forth and see what the world offered us. I hoped it was thriving out there. Drip, drip, drip. We needed it to be thriving. Whatever was out there wasn't ready for us, I was sure. Our hosts, whatever form they took, were unsuspecting. We could, and have, survived for hundreds of thousands of years in this cold, unforgiving desert. The permafrost we have been hibernating in is giving way to the warming earth below. It was almost time to leave, to spread, and to infect. Drip, drip, drip.